relax. This is TOFOP. I'm Charlie Clausen.
I'm Wil Anderson. Hello and thank you for watching. I hope you are watching. And if you are watching, I hope you can see Charlie's face.
Why? Oh, because I'm hidden behind this microphone.
Yes.
I've been a bit quiet on some of the episodes.
Have you?
I think I have. Well, you're
Have I
naturally
been too loud?
You're naturally louder than me in general. You projection because you do stage work and stuff, I'm assuming.
I knew how to use my theatrical voice.
I speak to the people in the back of the theatre. No, I think I have bad mic technique. So I've adjusted. Well, Amy came in and helped me. Mike came in and helped me adjust. I'm going to make that work. I'm going to make that happen.
Do it.
It helped me adjust the mic, but I felt like it was eclipsing my face.
But did you not think that you could take it in your own hands? It's like a pretty simple...
I felt like Amy, Mike, clearly felt like I couldn't because she came in. Yeah, because she said, "I'll adjust the mic," and I adjusted it, but then she came in and adjusted it again. So I mustn't have done something right.
That's passive
It's
aggressive,
really embarrassing.
Yeah.
Do you think there is a natural bias, or not a natural bias?
Mm-hmm.
This is a total left turn.
Yeah, good. I don't know. Well, I wasn't going anywhere anyway, so I don't know. Maybe it is exactly where I was going.
Whenever I come back to Sydney to do these shows, or in general,
Mm-hmm.
I love like a line bike, like one of those.
You do love a line bike.
When I caught up at your place, I rode a line bike there.
Yeah.
I just love it. I think it's such a great initiative, and scooter, bike, whatever it is, I'll ride it because it's a great way to get about. It's good for the environment.
I like this new form of this podcast where it starts with you endorsing a product
that doesn't sponsor our show.
You just come on and you do a nice little rave about a product that does not give us any money that you enjoy.
But I have noticed
yes,
it feels like there is a...
Because I thought Lime bikes were on the way out, or like those style of bikes.
What are they called? Rideshare
Yeah, there
bikes.
was a moment where they all came in and then everyone was chucking them in a river or up a tree.
Yeah.
And you were like, and they're all going out of
and now
business.
it's time for Charlie to adopt this technology.
No, but it feels like they're back a bit, right? They found their natural level.
I think they came in too early. And they were too sporadic.
And the scooters have made a difference.
And the scooters have made a difference.
Yeah, the fact that you don't have to do all the peddling yourself has made a difference.
Well, the bizarre thing was it felt like Melbourne was the last city to get on board. The first place I saw like motorised scooters was Brisbane. And I was like, this is excellent, like 4 years ago. Yeah. And then I was like, Melbourne is the flattest city in the world.
Melbourne gave it a go, but everyone would chuck them in the river.
No, they're back.
Yeah, I know they're back, but I'm just saying.
Chuck them in the river.
You're
endorsing river chucking.
There was a big period of chucking them in the river.
It's very much that Homer Simpson thing of it's fun to smash stuff. Come on, Marge, let's smash stuff.
I think that even people who like the technology were like, yeah, but there's this river right here that we could chuck it in.
I mean, everyone's worried about the rise of AI and robots and stuff, but they're all going to get chucked in a river before they can do any damage.
Just like this is fun.
That's how Terminator 5 ends.
Chucked in a river.
Terminator's been chucked in a river. But I feel like, so I will take a line bike, around the city. But I have noticed there is it's like a hostility towards people on line bikes. Like it's almost like from just general public, like
everyone.
I ride past people
pedestrians.
Yeah, but it's not so much about, the bikes, it's more you're a dork for riding a line bike. Like that is
do you have a helmet on?
Yes.
Yes.
Well, is that yes? I mean, I'm being safe.
No, that's what you're meant to do.
Yeah, right.
I'm just trying to paint a picture.
Okay, I'll give you a couple of different scenarios in which I've been mocked. So, about 2 months ago, I was down for a friend's birthday, and I had to get from Circular Quay back to Waterloo or whatever. And I couldn't get a cab, so I was like, I'll just get a line bike. It's bike paths all the way back. And it was a Saturday night. And so every time I pulled up into an intersection, I was mocked, bucks parties, groups of girls, whatever, just dork, ha ha ha. And I'm like, okay, well, that makes sense because, it's they're looking for someone to make fun of.
That's low-hanging fruit.
Low-hanging fruit.
This is perfect for a bucks party or a girl's night out. Some dork on his line bike. This is gold.
But then, since then, when I rode around to your place, just before Christmas, I rode past a group of joggers and I saw them kind of roll their eyes about the guy on the line bike. And then today, so I have spent all morning going around Sydney on a Lime bike. Like I started in Bondi, and then I went to Clovelly, had a swim, and then I rode back into town, and then came in. And I remember as I was cutting through Centennial to get back to where I was staying, I overtook a couple riding, and one guy's going, "Oh God, now Lime bike's gone past us." And I'm like, what is the issue with this very like public transport system? Like, is it one of those things where, you know, when mobile phones first started and like it was kind of cool to mock people, like, ugh, as if it's some kind of like lame status symbol, or you think you're better than us or whatever? Is that what's going on? That by me taking this very environmentally friendly form of transport and not getting an Uber or supporting some horrible company, that like I am making them feel worse about themselves?
This is one of those occasions where I'm not sure your personal experience is necessarily the universal experience.
You think it's me that's getting
I
mocked?
think it might be.
Really?
No,
I don't ride in an aggressive or lairish manner. Let me just, it's not like I'm
you've got
doing wheelies.
Because if you're slowing down enough for people to mock you is the problem.
I heard that, like when I rode past the guy today who was like, ugh, Lime bike's overtaking us. I was like, I almost wanted to stop and say, what's up?
Yeah, but how?
What's up? Drop the bike. Come on, bro. Rip my shirt off. Come at me, bro.
Yeah, but how do you know in that circumstance that her dismissal is about the Lime bike and not about his, like that feels to me when you are relaying that story, like this guy and whoever he's like cycling with is disappointed at the speed at which they are cycling and their aptitude for cycling, and now they're embarrassed because they've been overtaken by a Lime bike, which is a bike that is built more for getting you about town rather than for speed. And so you've taken something where they're not harumphing at the Lime bike. They're harumphing at themselves in comparison to the Lime bike.
I think there is a hostility to people on Lime bikes. People who are not delivering
these
food
same
and stuff.
streets that you are a visitor to at the moment.
You live in.
I'm living these streets.
And
man.
you don't
I'm walking
do you
these
ever
streets.
do you have any strong feelings about people on
I don't.
those hire bikes?
And I walk on those same paths that you would have ridden, like often, and I catch the light rail, which is nearby to there.
Is it a thing where you look like a tourist? Is that the issue? Do I look like a tourist?
Yeah, I mean, there's
a dorky tourist.
There's an element of that, I think.
Right.
They're like, but also, I think everyone's judgy of everybody else's form of transport because none of it's convenient to anybody else, right? And so there's this, they keep us fighting between each other, Charlie, so that we don't fight the real enemy, big public transport.
Well, because I overtook a bunch of like weekend cyclists on the way here as well.
Yeah. Well,
and they were shitty.
Weekend cyclists, right?
But they were shitty at me. And it's like, I mean, come
You're
on, man.
weekend cyclists, man.
Live and
You're
let
the
live.
ones that people get shitty at.
I know.
You don't get to
Don't
be
look
shitty
down
at
on
other
me.
people. Yeah. Well, that's what I mean. We all pick a target. We all pick someone down the chain that we can all roll our eyes at. And you were, so maybe spin it a different way. What does it hurt you? It doesn't hurt you that people roll their eyes at you or get a little bit of like, you know, like, maybe you're actually kind of doing them a service in that you let them vent a little bit of this pent-up anger they have about general life and society. And you,
I think it might
speeding by on your Lime bike with living your good life, seeing all your friends, going for a swim, popping around. You know what? You've just given them an opportunity to roll their eyes a little, and that's fine.
Is it though? I don't want to be the target of their derision.
Well, stop living your life how you are.
Conform to other people's expectations.
Stop flying so close to the sun.
I mean, I think you might be right in the sense that there could be a bit of projection going on, where I feel a little bit self-conscious about being a dork on a Lime bike. Like, for instance...
Yeah, you're putting a case together. Whereas those individual incidents, some of them may have been rolling their eyes. Who knows for what reason. But you've collected yourself a little case and a story that you've made in your own head.
Yeah.
And then when you've overtaken two people struggling on their,
pedal bikes, and I'm on this e-bike that they like, I mean, I think I did notice a shift today, though, like in getting into the studio, I didn't wear a helmet because I'm like, I want to see if this changes people's attitudes, and it definitely made a difference. So I think it might just be the helmet.
Yeah, people
see
when you
people protect
your
the skull, want to be around for my daughter as long as I can. That's what it is, though.
The law
people fucking hate
wanting
nerds.
to live for.
They don't they? They hate a nerd.
Yeah.
They hate someone who does the right
Yeah.
thing. Like, we're a country of larrikins, mate.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah,
I mean, heaps of rules.
Yeah.
But,
Don't try and have a public event without 700 like regulations
yeah,
and forms
but
you got to
don't
fill
you
out.
dare try and follow them, you nerd.
Now, Will, it's Oscar season, Oscar fever. The Oscars were
Weren't they great?
amazing, wonderful,
Or terrible?
so good. And that opening number by Billy Crystal,
that thing,
fantastic.
That controversial thing that happened, I imagine.
Can you believe that so-and-so got slapped by so-and-so?
I can now.
Yeah,
That's
I mean, it's
the thing that happens most years.
We are recording this a week before the Oscars or 2 weeks before the Oscars. It would be amazing if there was like another slapping. Like it's become, that's the tradition.
I was thinking about this the other day.
No more opening monologues, just one slapping.
But not even just the slapping, because, there was the reading out the wrong winner.
Yep, Warren Beatty.
Right? There's been the slap.
Yep.
It's kind of become, it's the Oscars, something of like enormous note, some big scandal or whatever is going to happen.
Should
it's
we
almost
look into
part of the
crystal ball.
Charlie, just for the people who are not watching the video, this is just rubbing his glass.
Rubbing a glass. My jug, my
jar of water.
Jar of water. What is likely? Okay, so the big talking point, obviously, the big controversy is that like
because I've not watched any
Margot
movies,
and Greta were snubbed.
Yeah, well, they weren't though. Greta was nominated for something. She just wasn't nominated for best director.
Right? Yeah. So I reckon it's a good chance that maybe Ryan, the Baby Goose
wins. Baby
gets up and says, Luke Beveridge style.
Oh yeah.
Greta, come up on stage.
Yeah.
I want you to have this.
Yeah. Oh, well, that's that's the original famous Oscars thing, right? Isn't it? Like, who was it who sent along the
Marlon Brando?
Marlon Brando. So
then sent the Native American girl.
Ryan Gosling is
sends
like a
Greta up
sends
to
Greta
get
up to accept the award,
and she refuses it, and then she sends Margot up, and
Yeah,
Margot
and she
refuses, and then she
refuses
sends
as well.
up to someone else, and it's just an endless parade
America
of people.
Ferrera, and then John Cena, and he accepts it.
Yeah, he would too. How good is it that The Rock is back as a bad guy? We were texting while I was away about this. So for people who aren't familiar with the wrestling, The Rock started his career as a good guy, but then quickly found his feet as a heel, and that's what launched him into stardom as a wrestler. So what's happened in the wrestling is they brought him, he's become a board member of the WWE, and they brought him back as a big ticket attraction for WrestleMania, thinking that everyone would love it.
Yes.
But it turns out people don't love that because they've been putting all their eggs in one basket, which is Cody Rhodes, who's this new baby face. And so in an amazing pivot, they went from putting The Rock into WrestleMania as the good guy to going, oh, hang on, the fans hate this. How can we arrest this? And so they very smartly...
Just before... Oh, yeah, okay. No, what you say what it is first, and then I've got a question to ask you about it.
So in a matter of a week, they turned it around where The Rock then slapped the good guy and is now officially a heel. And so...
this is the point I want to ask the question, which is how... Because you've watched a lot of documentaries about how they do the WWE and, like, how the storylines are put together and how much planning there is versus how much they're proactive to what the reactions are. So my question is about that, which is, would they have gone into this thinking we've got like a political party would, and they go, there's a couple of ways this could go. We're bringing The Rock back. There could be, or is this one of these things where you think they went into this knowing there'd be a chance that The Rock would have to do a heel turn, or if they just, because The Rock is a big Hollywood movie star who did play this heel character in the wrestling, but essentially went back in as that first appearance that we talked about on the podcast, at playing that Hollywood persona. We referenced the fact that he was joking about his own movies, and it didn't quite feel like it was 100% working. Yeah. And then there was this real pushback against it, and the storyline, they flipped it to him like being really embracing it and being the bad guy, and it feels much more comfortable and exciting and interesting.
And the fans are happy, so they're kind of like, everyone gets their cake.
And for The Rock, couldn't have worked out better
100%.
Because this is exactly what he needed. So do you think they went into this because they know the history of wrestling and how things could be going, this is one of the possible scenarios that could happen? Or do you think this really took them by surprise that there was such a big backlash and they just had the courage to immediately recognize, because of his wrestling background, that this was an opportunity to dive into something that I think will actually end up being a much better thing for him?
100% the latter.
Yeah.
Because the
okay.
whole reason they brought him in was because originally the WrestleMania title card was going to be CM Punk and Brock Lesnar in the main events. Brock Lesnar obviously is caught up in the whole Vince McMahon thing, so he's not on the card. CM Punk got injured. So out of desperation, they're like, we need an attraction. So they brought The Rock in, expecting, oh, well, we can put him in the main event against, you know, his nephew or cousin or whatever Roman Reigns is. But then they weren't anticipating the backlash. So they scrambled very hard to then pivot and very smartly just sort of read where the fans wanted it to go. And in retrospect, it's like a much better idea.
Much better. So that's why I guess I asked that question, is like, how much of this is them knowing that it can go a couple of different ways and then pursuing it, or them just so steeped in the language of how wrestling works and how to adapt to a situation like that they just did what was the natural thing to do in that situation, which was, because you can just imagine in the world of wrestling, of course, that's great. You go to heel in that moment, but he's not just a wrestler anymore.
Yeah.
He's
A brand.
a brand, and this, like, you know, family brand, and this guy who was like the biggest superstar on the planet for a while. And to be a proper heel in the world of wrestling, like, there is going to be a cognitive dissonance or something between the mainstream coverage of what is going on in the world of wrestling. Like, people who follow wrestling will understand what is happening,
Yeah.
and be excited about it, and think, oh, this is amazing. Whereas the way it reports over into the mainstream media is that, like, yeah, The Rock's back in the wrestling and everybody hates him, without the understanding of
It's a work.
that this is great.
Yeah.
Like, this is what they're doing. This is the whole bit.
Yeah.
So there is a risk of loss of personal reputation by people not really understanding, you know, what is going on, right?
Yeah.
So to take that risk is...
Well, it's funny. The right wing, some members of like sort of the right wing in America have, it's so funny. Like, America's such a fucking crazy country, have used the kayfabe of The Rock being a bad guy to try and attack, like, you know, Oprah Winfrey. So what they did is they took footage of The Rock being booed at the wrestling and said, oh, this is because The Rock and Oprah funneled relief funds from Hawaii. And I've never seen The Rock do this before, but he was like, fucking hang on. Like,
Come on.
like, normally I don't respond to this kind of shit, but they're not booing me. A, the funds got to where they needed to go, but B, it's fucking wrestling. Like, it's made up. Like, I'm not actually a bad guy. This is the theater of what we do. But it's just like, what a fucking country where, like, this is so clearly, like, everyone knows that it's not real. And that's, we also suspend our disbelief so we can enjoy it. But there's going to be some, like, sections of, like, the right-wing commentators are like, oh, this is a great way to, you know, to damage the Democrat brand or the left-leaning brand.
So there is a lot on the line, is my point. So the fact that they've had the courage to do it, it could be the best thing that's, you know, we've all, because we can all see what's happening with The Rock. The Rock's like a big tech company. The Rock's Facebook or Apple or whatever, you know? They get to the top because they're this, like, challenger thing that just keeps seeing the possibility in every step about the way, and they had this, like, incredible product, but they, you know, then after a while, like, not everybody has, like, you know, you get one Facebook, you get one iPhone. You don't necessarily, you know, every time you go up to bat again, like, you know, hit another home run. And The Rock was a bit like that. It all built until he was this incredible, ubiquitous, they can't do anything wrong.
Yeah.
You know, like, it's always going to be upward for The Rock trajectory. And then there's just been this period recently of, like, oh, we thought we were going to, like,
We were going to go float on the stock exchange.
Yeah, well, we thought, you know, it was going to be the vision thing and everyone was going to wear Google glasses or whatever. And then suddenly it didn't work out and you're like, oh, we've brought out a smaller or bigger iPhone. Like,
whatever you want. Just tell us what you want, monkeys.
What do you want now? More lenses?
Yeah.
I guess? And it felt like he was scratching around in a, you know, bigger, smaller, more lenses world. and then suddenly an opportunity has presented itself in the wrestling to actually do something that is very fun and very
Well, the interesting
interesting.
part of it is how such a big mainstream star marries what is essentially the circus
Yeah.
of, like, professional wrestling, even though it's a very mainstream, sanitized product. But it's still carny, it's got that
Yeah.
carny atmosphere to it, where it's a bit weird and not everyone gets it. Marrying that with the dude who is the most risk-adverse entertainer in the world. Like, I'm sure there was a period of time where he was like, oh, it'd be kind of good if people didn't go back and look at, the stuff I did earlier because it's a bit edgy. But now him embracing that with the full force of, like, the Hollywood star factory behind him to see how he can marry that. But I think the way he's marrying it is just by compartmentalizing very clearly.
Yeah.
When I'm doing
Here's a
that,
character
I'm The
I'm
Rock.
playing. Yeah.
And when I'm not, I'm Dwayne Johnson.
Yeah, which was the better thing. That's why I think it works better than the original thing when he came back as because he's referencing his Hollywood movies and stuff. You're like, yeah, we kind of actually, you're not that
Yeah.
It's easier to delineate the character with him playing this heel turn, but it's also funny. And it plays to the storyline that they seem to have already had going. It now adds to that storyline and makes it more interesting and compelling, right?
Yeah.
Like, so, yeah, I mean, it's been, but we're speaking about this a couple of weeks out from who knows what's happened by now. And also, I know, I was not, because I don't follow the wrestling behind the scenes as much, but I listened to that old Behind the Bastards, 6-part episode on Vince McMahon, and in light of the latest horrible allegations and revelations that had come out about him, like it had been referenced in a few of those things as being, and so I was like listening to that, and I mean, incredible, like, kind of look at the history of wrestling as well, and how many dark corners that it does have, and as you said, like, for someone else for The Rock even to be going back into that at this time when, like, that stuff is becoming more and more.
It's actually interesting because as recording this, Elimination Chamber happened in Perth yesterday, which is like, one of their big pay-per-view events. Well, that's not pay-per-view anymore these days, but it's been interesting hearing, like, because it's so bizarre because they will do a press conference with the wrestlers and they'll talk about the matches as if, like it was a legitimate contest and stuff like that. But then they'll also get questions about, well, how do you respond to the allegations against Vince? And so on one hand, it's the show and they're responding in character. And then they have to shift and respond as the human being or the, the person, the performer, whoever they are. And it's like, it's such, the allegations are so horrendous and so horrible. And like the evidence seems quite like irrefutable at the moment, at least, like they have text messages and all that kind of stuff.
Oh yeah. And when you listen to this like podcast series, you realize
it's a pattern of
behavior for a very long time.
And it's weird too, because like it's one of those things of hiding in plain sight, a bit like the Jimmy Savile thing, because he was such a big personality who was like, aggressive and loud and all this kind of stuff, and literally played a gigantic cartoon villain, like in the wrestling in the late 90s and stuff. And so then to find out that this stuff was happening in real life, it's like, it's not a huge shock in a way.
No. And I mean, obviously, look, we are not the first, but I mean, you look at it, Trump's America, right? Like it is, Trump is Vince McMahon. He came from the wrestling. He was in so much of what he
does is inspired by wrestling promotion.
Right. And like,
be loud, be controversial, be unrepentant.
And do it all in plain sight. You've seen the way that he's handled, like, the fact that he is just out there running for president with like 91 every day there's like a new sort of charge or allegation
$380 million
or like,
fine.
Yeah, right?
Pay,
Like every day there seems to be a story.
But doesn't it make you go like, fucking hell, like,
so
why do I pay parking fines?
Right.
Why do I do anything? Because clearly you can just keep rolling on.
For president.
But I don't know, like it just...
Like when someone seems to be running for president so they can pardon themselves of all the crimes they've committed, it's bold, right? But it's very wrestling.
Yeah.
is that idea of like you're hiding in plain sight.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess so. I mean,
Or wearing these things as a badge of honor.
that's
and
right.
that they can
It's
cover it.
it's more that, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's about creating, they hate me.
Yes.
So I'm going to
Yeah.
get support because the people who hate me, you hate.
Yeah.
So if you hate them, then support me because
Yeah.
I'm taking them on, even though what I'm really trying to do is save my own ass.
Yeah, that's
I actually
right.
don't give a fuck about you guys.
at all. I've just committed a lot of crimes. And the only way out of those crimes, it turns out, is being president.
I mean, it's just
What a system.
It's so bizarre, isn't it? Like to think that we could be back there again in 6 months. Like I was caught up with a mate today who's an actor.
Man.
And he's working on a show at the moment, and then his management in the States, like, I'll come back to the States. And he's like, can I just wait? Can I just see what happens in November to see if I want to go back? Because I was talking to another friend who lives in LA, and I said to him, are you getting, like, is the stuff that we're seeing in the news and the tension that seems to be apparent in all the reporting, is it evident on the street? Like, if you're just walking around, are you aware? And he said, yes. Like, it is very evident that it's a country with a lot of like political tension at the moment. So it's like, what's going to happen? Especially when there's a guy like well, the amazing thing is you've got two, a leader, like a Republican nominee and a Democrat nominee who no one seems to like either of them. And the polling seems to suggest that if it was anyone else, either Republican or Democrat, anyone else, they would win in a landslide. Yet no one else is being offered up. Like, it just seems like the biggest no-brainer.
Seems like a weird system, doesn't it?
A weird, really weird system. Where
the one thing all of us can agree on is we prefer someone other than these two.
Yeah.
And Robert F. Kennedy's like, I don't believe in vaccines. What about me? I'm a Kennedy.
I mean, you've lived there for a while.
Yes.
Like, how long? About 10 years?
10 years.
On and off, right?
Yeah, on and off. 5 years total, over 10 years.
And did you notice like a
yes.
decline?
I mean, honestly, I say to people, like, I mean, part of the reason that I came back, not the only reason, but part of the reason that I came back was literally, I was just like, this
the
doesn't...
wheels are falling
Yeah,
off.
right? It's like,
We're just grinding axle at
doesn't feel
this
like the
stage.
time to be signing up to more of this, you know? And so, and particularly when you're like, this is not my thing. I can't, like, me being here is not helping this, and it's certainly not helping me. Like, this feels like it's falling apart, and it feels like the end of an empire, or an empire that's just completely out of control. Like
300 million people is a lot of people. It feels like, the only way to control like people of that size is through strong arm
when none
tactics.
of them, like, they all just disagree with each other.
And it's so culturally different from state to state.
All over the place.
Yeah.
And they're all being told by each other that they're all lying to each other and that they're all enemies of each other. Like, I mean, it's a lot.
Yeah. I mean, it would be entertaining if it wasn't so scary.
I mean, it's terrifying because they've got most of the bombs.
Weapons, yeah.
Like,
and the biggest military in the world.
The biggest military in the world. And, like, I mean, obviously, anyway, like, I mean, welcome to our Foreign Affairs podcast.
To Foreign Affairs. We did bring up films, Oscars before. And in my little break, I did have a chance to catch up on quite a few films.
Great.
So I want to... I've done some one-line reviews of a bunch of different films.
Brilliant.
So, okay, I watched the new Mission Impossible film. It's called Mission Impossible Renegade, Mission Impossible...
Part 1.
Reckoning.
Dead Reckoning. That's
Dead
it.
One.
I have
Reckoning
no idea.
Part 1.
I know it didn't do very well.
Yeah.
I quite enjoyed it. I enjoy all...
From what I've heard, it didn't do well because it's a part 1 and part 1s don't do that well. People wait until the part 2 comes out. And the other thing is that, is there not is it not an AI or something?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it's a MacGuffin. It's some AI.
Yeah.
It's weird. It's almost the MacGuffin, the device that everyone's chasing. Yes, it's an AI thing that is controlling people's minds. It's almost like, remember in the 80s when there'd be a film like Electric Dreams or Weird Science, it's like computers are magical.
Yeah.
And it's like, this is dumb. Like, what are you talking about? So it's got an element of that. But my one-line review of Dead Reckoning is at terminal velocity, Tom Cruise's plastic surgery looks weird.
Okay.
So he does a big skydiving sequence.
Yeah.
And like he looks great for most of the film. Again, all his own stunts and stuff. but that he's been very patient and he's been very incremental in his surgery, like just little bits here and there. And so you just haven't noticed. He's just looked like Tom Cruise his whole career. But when you are falling at terminal velocity and his skin is getting blown back, you're like, whoa! You feel like you are seeing how the sausage is made.
Oh, I mean, there was a photo of him at the tennis or something.
Yeah, I
Do you remember
that.
that?
Yeah.
No, I think that was the moment where we all saw behind the, saw that the Wizard of Oz wasn't perhaps the magical wizard that we were all thinking he might have been.
It's total. Those Mission Impossible films, I think, have only, like, they're great. Like they after 3 or 4, they started getting really good.
Yeah.
But I feel like they crammed too much story into them. Like there's all this intrigue and, spy versus spy and all that kind of stuff. When really, it's just like, if John Wick taught us anything, it's like we want to see like action sequences with just a thin amount of plot in between connecting them.
You know what they should do in the very final, what the last scene of the final ever Mission Impossible should be?
What?
I've got it in my head right now. So, what's his name? Ethan Hunt.
Ethan Hunt.
Ethan Hunt has finally been. It's his final. Mission Impossible,
He's gone rogue.
Mission Impossible, final mission.
Yeah.
Is what this is called.
Mission Impossible Final Mission.
Yeah. Mission Impossible Final Mission. So he died.
Mission unaccepted.
He dies at the end.
Yeah.
And when he dies, someone goes up to his face and they peel off his face, his modern Tom Cruise face, and his old Tom Cruise face is underneath.
That would be brilliant.
Yeah.
You know what I was thinking watching it is like Ving Rhames just must thank his lucky stars.
What else is he doing?
Exactly.
Does he just do
I think
those
he
movies?
just does those films. And all he has to do is like sit in a comfy chair and be like, oh, I've unlocked the door, Ethan.
It's
like,
amazing, isn't it? That you just like...
Look behind you, Ethan. They're coming, Ethan.
You've got to think that Ving Rhames could be working more than Ving Rhames works.
Why bother?
That's what I feel like Ving...
I mean, Simon Pegg's in the same boat, really. Like he doesn't have... They make Simon Pegg do more. Like he does some action-y kind of stuff as well. But Ving Rhames just sits in a comfy chair and says, they're coming, Ethan. Look behind you, Ethan. The door's unlocked, Ethan. I
mean, and wasn't there a point when he was kind of one of the other action leads in it? Like a bit earlier on, wasn't Ving doing more sort of...
I was thinking about that. So the very first one, right? That was, wasn't it like Emilio Estevez was the original Simon Pegg?
Emilio Estevez was definitely in it.
Yeah. But I can't remember when Ving came into it. But it's like occasionally, I guess you just hit on it. It's like if you're in the Fast and the Furious, right? Like Jordana Brewster. She must be just like awesome. Like another Fast and Furious thing.
I'd love to just be in something.
An ensemble where you don't really have to
That's
do
what
that
I mean. Like where it's like where you're the
Good joke, Dom. Well, another Corona, Dom.
Yeah, correct.
Yeah.
What's a good Australian
franchise?
Like, there isn't really any Mad
Crocodile
Max.
Dundee.
Crocodile Dundee. I could just be like, nice one, Mick.
Yeah. Here's your knife, Mick. Is this the knife? This is a knife, Mick. I don't know. Yeah, I guess it would be Mad Max. That would be the most viable one.
Yeah.
And you could be in that because they love freaks and weirdos.
True. And they could just make me up, right? You know what I mean? Like,
and you fucking mates with George.
They use like people who are like, like rock stars from other areas of life.
Angry
like,
Anderson.
Yeah,
Tina Turner.
exactly. It's actually part of the... So I could rock
I can
up.
imagine the Wasteland. There's a comedian.
Quentin was in
Fury
that's
Road.
right.
Nathan Jones.
Yes.
Not the footballer, the wrestler.
Yes.
Although Nathan Jones, the footballer, would also be good.
Yeah, that's you could definitely be in that universe.
Yeah. I could see you in that. And I think that in the Wasteland...
Why have I not been in that?
Because what George Miller's done amazingly since Fury Road is create this world, right? There is like there's societal norms and there's systems of government and there's trading and stuff. So in that world, there would be entertainment.
Iota's playing guitar on the front of the...
Why couldn't there be some Wasteland freak telling jokes?
Exactly.
Just a scene. And you'd have to do it in that pidgin English that they use. Like, it wouldn't be knock knock. It'd be like, tap knock.
Yes.
Who is that?
Yes.
Or you could do it like ostentatious.
Or just like wordplay about stuff.
Exactly.
Like,
wasted land or something like that. Don't be so mad, Max. Wilstentatious. Okay, next film. I saw Wonka. I watched Wonka.
Yeah.
Have you seen Wonka?
Yeah. So like I've been to post-pandemic. I can tell you, I've been to the movies twice since the pandemic.
Yeah.
And one of them was the Spider-Man
Across the Spider-Verse.
Across the Spider-Verse
2.
Loved it. And the other one was
Wonka.
And I went to see Wonka because I have a bit of material about Roald Dahl books and them censoring Roald Dahl books, and I was considering doing it for something. And I was like, you know what? I better go and see this movie just in case there's something in this or I can leverage it as a bit. So I went in the middle of the day to Gold Class in the summer on a hot day. I thought, oh, this is nice. I'll get out of the hot and I'll go and watch Wonka. And I was not aware.
There was a musical.
I knew there was going to be music, right? The original one has music.
Too much
Good music. But this one has a lot of music.
A lot of music.
It's mostly music.
It's part of that secret musical thing
Yeah,
that
but this is
studios
like-
do now, where they don't let you know it's a musical.
But this
till
is
it's too
like,
late.
I've seen musicals that didn't have as much music as this one. Like, it's a lot of music. They're singing most of the time.
Yeah.
And I quite liked it.
Okay.
But there's only like 1.5 good songs in it. And they sing like so many songs.
My one-word review
Yeah.
of Wonka is that there's not enough words that rhyme with chocolate. Because every song they would try and come up with a rhyme for chocolate, and it's like there's not enough. And stop trying. Like, you hate a slant rhyme, clearly. And that would be
Chocolate. put it
don't
in
knock
my
it.
pocket.
It's a chocolate.
Yeah, I know.
We bought a bottle of it with the chocolate. And it's like, no, that doesn't work. Just like come up with something else. There's not enough
just
words that rhyme
shorten
with
it to
chocolate.
choc and rhyme it with rock and cock, and you're done.
Have a look at my. And then bite on some chalk. I think I hated it. I just was like, this is. I mean, I just found it. I think what they got wrong, and this is. Well, it's the same with the fucking Ghostbusters reboot, is that the original Ghostbusters was a comedy. It was a Saturday Night Live comedy. It's not meant to be taken seriously. And then all the reboots have been so reverential about like the proton packs and the Ecto-1. And it's like the tone's wrong. Willy Wonka is not a hero. Willy Wonka in the original film is a villain. He hates children and he tests children and he wants children to fail. This Willy Wonka loves a street urchin and wants to bring chocolate to the world. It's a complete misreading of what the character is.
Unless there's like a Empire Strikes Back style dark chapter in between.
Oh, wouldn't that be amazing?
Right? Where we see this character, this Willy Wonka, become...
He accidentally murders a child in his factory and then realizes he has a taste for blood.
He
I love murdering children.
I love murdering children. And then it's just
starts pushing
like
them into the chocolate
Hannibal style Silence of the Lambs.
If they want to go that direction, where there's
like every movie in the franchise is
another horrific child murder.
Well, no, like, you know, isn't there some like there's a really famous example of it, but basically this is my horror film and this is my action film and this is my... So if you took Wonka and then every chapter in the Wonka thing, you're like, okay, well, that's the Paddington, Wonka musical. Like it's a musical.
Yep.
We've done Wonka. It's a musical, but the next one is like a gritty Silence of the Lambs style.
Yeah.
Like
or Hostel.
Yeah. Oh yeah. No. Yeah. Like a
torture
proper dial it up.
Yeah.
Get James Wan and Lee Winnell involved to do
Eli
Wonka.
Roth presents Wonka.
So different chapters of Wonka, but like done in like boldly different stylistic choices.
I'm all for that.
Yeah.
I just found the whole thing like, because I love the Paddington movies too.
Yes.
Like that, the director Paul White or Paul Wright, I can't remember his name. He's the Boosh. He directed the Boosh TV series.
The Mighty Boosh?
The Mighty Boosh. Isn't it called the Boosh? Or was it called the Mighty Boosh?
I believe they were the Mighty Boosh.
Oh, right. Okay. All right. I apologize to you Bush heads out there.
I mean, I was just trying to be funny, like as if there was another Bush that you were. Right. That was all I was going with. The amused Bush.
So I think he's an amazing director, and the pairing of the material, like it's kind of. Have you seen Wonka, Mike?
I have.
What did you think?
I thought it was perfectly serviceable as like a holiday family film. But
yes, if
Perfectly serviceable as a holiday.
that's going on
family
the poster,
film.
isn't it? The Blu-ray release.
Oh boy.
that's the studio Oscar campaign, perfectly serviceable,
Perfectly
like a screwdriver.
serviceable.
It's perfectly.
I mean-
It does a job. I think if Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory, the Gene Wilder version, didn't exist, then
Yes.
yeah, absolutely, what a whimsical, fun tale. But you can't get. Like, if it was a completely unique, like, everyone hates the Tim Burton version, but at least he tried to do something different. Like, there's not a lot of the same kind of, there's not a lot of the same, like, costumes or even music or anything. It's a different version of Willy Wonka. But this tries to say, this is a young Gene Wilder, this is the same universe, but it's a completely different character.
But you could
which comes
s-
back to your point,
yeah,
when did he turn evil?
But you could see that young character, right? Those who become most disillusioned, right? The idea with the Willy Wonka from the Gene Wilder Willy Wonka is not a person who hates children. It's a person who has come to hate children, right? Like, because he still loves Charlie. He wants to test them. Like, he's lost faith that, like, it's something.
He wants to see, what is there still good in the world?
Yeah. The only person who wants to do that is someone who once believed there was so much good in the world and at some stage had that taken away from them. It's not someone who's never believed it to be the case, right? So there is room for an incident between, I think there's a way of the character who is in Wonka
Bridging the
becoming
gap
the
to
character who
Willy
is,
Wonka.
because I think that you have to be that idealistic about
He has to
it
get
all.
betrayed by the street
Something
urchin.
has to happen.
What's
yeah.
her name? It begins with a Z. No, Beans. No.
Zendaya.
Noodle.
Noodle beans.
Noodle is
Zendaya noodle beans.
the street. Isn't Zendaya's not in it?
No,
Oh,
you
that's
said it
June.
started with Z.
Oh.
I was like Zendaya.
I think that's a plot twist. It was
Yeah.
and Z they thought was an N. Noodle has to betray Willy
Yeah,
for him to hate children. Like,
that's right.
she's the original Charlie.
Yeah,
Essentially.
exactly.
Like, he gives her the
Yeah.
keys to the factory, let's be partners,
Yeah.
and she betrays
Noodle
him and starts
betrays him.
Cadbury.
Yeah.
That would be amazing. She's and you know what? She
Yeah.
starts Nestle because they're the
Yeah.
ones who are fucking, aren't
Yeah.
Nestle like buying up
That's-
water reserves and
That's
stuff
right.
like that?
That's saying baby formula.
Baby
to-
formula to Africa and stuff like that.
Wonka. Takes a Wonka recipe and makes it into baby formula to sell to Africa.
All right, what's my
Okay.
next one word
right.
review
Uh-huh.
is Blue Beetle. I watched. We urgently need a superhero film amnesty. Any films that are in development now, studios, just hand in your scripts, we'll destroy them.
Yeah.
No questions asked.
Audiences have decided that anyway.
Yeah.
Like, no one's watching anything.
Yeah.
Matt,
It's not even a bad movie. It's just like,
Yeah.
do you realize we've seen this?
Yeah.
We've seen this exact story like 4 times.
yes.
Doesn't matter how talented or charming your cast is, we've seen this and it's no longer interesting.
No one's interested. If we're not interested, no
Doesn't
one's
matter if you
interested.
gender swap, if you ethnically swap, stop swapping things. It doesn't matter. We've seen it all.
We need a break.
We need a break. We just need some time off.
We just need to
I just
chill
need to
out.
just think for a bit. I need some
Just
time on my own.
Stop.
It's really, it's
just
so
too much.
boring and uninteresting. And I like
We just
all
need
the
a clean
cast.
break. We can't be dragging it out like this.
Yeah.
Like, this is destroying what love we used to have
and
for
and
each
this
other.
podcast,
Yeah.
like we were the biggest cheerleaders for it. And now it's like, I'd like
we
to
were wrong.
apologize.
We were so wrong.
If we in
If
any
we
way
any way
contributed,
I don't think we did, but if we did.
I think it's also like, there's part of this, is the word infantilizing of like popular culture,
Yeah.
which is like, oh, you guys like this? Well,
Mm.
here's the freaking dumbest version of this you can ever have. I still think there's interesting things happening within the superhero space, like The Boys or
Probably.
comic strips and whatever.
Uh-huh.
But it's the stuff that we thought we wanted. We don't
Yeah.
want it.
We don't want
We
it.
reject it.
We
I'm
were
so
wrong.
sorry. Like, my consent is no longer
But
enthusiastic.
that's
and
why we
continuing.
should
It
never
is
be
now
left to our own devices. We're terrible. It's
and
like,
making decisions.
yes, I mean, it's like first year of uni, somebody eating buckets of chicken every night, like
Yeah.
drinking slabs of beer. Like, you're like, I'm in charge now. You shouldn't be. You're making terrible decisions.
I mean, I haven't seen it, but Madam Web, I understand, is like the worst film ever to be made.
I mean, that almost got me interested again because of that.
How
I was
bad it
like,
is.
because I haven't watched any of this phase.
Yeah.
So I actually am I've been having my own break from superhero films. I can't actually remember the last thing that I would have. What's come out? Like, what would have been? I didn't see Guardians 4.
There was an Ant-Man.
Did not see
Guardians
that.
3, not 4.
Did not see that.
I saw Guardians 3, which
not.
I enjoyed, but I can't remember anything
Okay.
about it.
What else has happened? I saw Lady Hulk, She-Hulk.
Yeah, I watched that.
Yeah, that's the one. I reckon that's the only one I've seen.
I think there was a bunch of stuff that came out.
Yeah.
Would have been DC stuff, right? But no one saw.
Aquaman 2. That
Oh, yes,
barn burner.
Aquaman 2 came out.
Did not see Aquaman
what was
2.
the other one?
What did you say?
Just-
Wormburner.
Worm
No,
burner.
that
What's
barn
worm burner?
burner.
Barn burner. I was like,
What's that? Is that a
worm
new
burner?
character?
Actually,
Now
feel
him I
like
can get into.
Just worm burner, I quite like. Well, they've announced the Fantastic Four, right?
Oh,
They're gonna
God. That's what I'm saying. It's an amnesty. Destroy all the scripts. Destroy all the production art, everything, previs, sequences. Just get rid of it all. We don't want it. We don't want it.
Is this... No, this will save it, though. It's...
Fantastic Four.
Yeah, Fantastic Four. It's a...
Pedro Pascal
Yeah.
as Reed Richards.
Yeah. I mean, that seems like it'll work. Great.
It's exhausting.
They've got Cousin from The Bear in it.
And like James Gunn's shooting a new Superman, and they're probably doing a Batman
Why
too.
are they doing all
like,
this? Stop it for a bit.
amnesty.
Just stop it.
Hand in the scripts. We'll burn them.
Let's just have a stop.
And I want comic books to continue. That's fine.
Yes.
Comic books continue.
Yeah, but like
We need new
let's
ideas.
build up some ideas.
Yeah, let's build up some ideas.
Let's have
it's
a
like
break.
if you masturbate every day.
Yeah. It's like just
It gets harder and harder each time,
It's
right?
like, yeah.
Just have a break for a week. You'll be surprised with what happens.
Right.
Okay. My next one-word review. The Exorcist Believer. My one-line review is, the devil is the most sympathetic character. Now, do you know anything about this new Exorcist film? What's scarier than one possessed teenage girl?
Two possessed
Teenage girls.
I never found The Exorcist scary in the first place.
Okay, you wouldn't.
Never thought it was a particularly
Okay.
Like-
I am the target market. Raised Catholic, always was
perfect for you.
terrified
Yes.
of The Exorcist. The idea that such an innocent person could be overtaken by an evil entity has always been terror. Even like now.
By the way,
What?
I forgot to tell you this. So, like, I was doing my improvised show in Port Macquarie, and I won't name the man in the audience because he's a teacher at a local Catholic school,
Okay.
and I didn't want to, there was a point in the improvisation that I stopped improvising because I was like, it's a small community.
Yeah.
don't want you to have to lose your
Destroy
job
its career.
based on this. Yeah, we're just having a fun night out. I said, I can't remember what the exact thing was. And I said, it was something about guilt or being Catholic or whatever. And I said, I've got a friend who gets most of his guilt from being raised Catholic. And he goes, Charlie Clausen. And I was like, that was who I was thinking of. You're right. So there you go.
I was actually saying to Jem, like, I don't know what we're talking about, but I was like, look, there's a lot of negative things about being raised Catholic, but I do feel like there is a moral grounding that I appreciate. And one of those things is putting others' needs before your own. And Jem's like, that's not a good thing.
Yeah.
And I'm like, what do you mean? She's like, well, no, you want to be compassionate to others, but always putting people in front of you, that's a bad thing. That's not something that you should encourage.
It's honestly something that my therapist talks about a lot. And I didn't get it from the Catholics, but I got it. I found it somewhere, picked it up for myself.
Okay, so it actually starts off. I love a horror film.
Yeah.
Love the Exorcist original film, but it's like
So I can't even remember really what the Exorcist is like. Is
So
that
the
the
original-
one where like they're strapped to the bed?
yes,
Yeah.
Yeah,
So it's
so-
all like demonic possession.
that's right. And to this, like to even as a grown up, if you change someone's voice and give them glowing red eyes, it still it makes me scared. Like I can't help it; it just scares me. But the original Exorcist was like just the ultimate in 70s filmmaking. In the 70s, when every film was just like grounded in realism and everything was nihilistic and dark and stuff. And so this film starts off quite well. And it's really about, in the same way that Talk to Me is about grief and about losing a parent. That's what this is about. A teenage girl whose mother died in childbirth. She's now turning 13. The metaphor is like, kids hit teenagedom, they change all of a sudden. She's getting flooded with hormones and stuff. In this instance, she wants to contact her dead mother, but that opens a doorway to the devil. And so the first 20 to 30 minutes, especially as a a father of a young girl. You know, it's really a story about a single dad trying to raise his teenage girl, and he loves her, but there's certain things he can't do for her because he just doesn't get the head of a teenage girl. And so I was invested in the first 20 minutes. But then when the devil comes in, so she and her friend go off into the woods to do a satanic rite, you know, or some kind of, you know, satanic rite, and they both get possessed by the devil. And so then they come back to their small town. And so you got the dad, the single dad, who's kind of an atheist and doesn't believe in anything, and he's trying to work out what's going on. And then the other girl is in a fundamentalist Christian family, like a Seventh-day Adventist or something like that. And so they're all very like, you know, I was going to say Charlie Church. I don't know if that's the right term. But then, so as the girls get more and more like possessed by the devil and acting out and being all creepy and weird and stuff, the film's message is that, hey man, you know, to drive out the devil, you don't need just one religion. You need all religions. And so they literally round up like, get me a priest, a rabbi. Like they literally,
and a brown paper bag.
They get like, yeah, they get, you know, they get people from, you know, they get.
So it's like the
voodoo,
Avengers of
witch
religions.
doctor. Yeah, it's the Avengers, but it's
Get me the Pope.
But you're sort of watching
You're
this.
going to get me the Pope?
And these two girls have
and
been
a mufti.
and I'm like, this is terrible. Like, who's made the decision to strap two teenage girls to a chair who get surrounded by adults who should know better?
But also, isn't
What?
I mean, okay,
Go. No.
so many questions.
Yes.
But isn't the premise of The Exorcist that they're possessed by Satan, right?
Satan, yeah.
Which is Satan, I mean,
is a Catholic invention.
Well, specifically.
Well,
Will,
in many painful monologues you'll have to endure watching The Exorcist Bleed, you'll find out that evil takes many forms.
Oh, are you
And
talking
just
about the
like
movie
faith
The Expositionist?
The Expositionist. I mean, it's just... like the setup is so good for a horror film, and you're like, oh, this could be a really interesting metaphor for, like, you know, teenage angst and, you know, the struggles of fatherhood and stuff. And then it just becomes like action packed, like how can we make heads twist and all this kind of stuff. But the idea that the smartest people in the room think the best thing to do for these two girls is to tie them to chairs and like hurl abuse at them and like douse them in holy water and stuff. It's like, hang on. Because the devil's like, you're all fuckheads, get out of here. And I'm like, I agree with the devil. I think this is terrible. I think the devil is not doing anything that bad. He's just hanging out with these teenage girls, not even being, there's no kind of like horrific crucifix masturbation like the original Exorcist film. He's just been a cheeky little chappy hanging out with these girls.
Oh, man.
But it's the adults.
I'm not sure that you need to be on the side of the devil. Well, I think we can still rule a line at, like, the devil not being good. But
well, look, the whole time I'm like, I think these parents are behaving terribly irresponsibly. They've overreacted, and
these girls just want to have a little dabble with the devil.
And I don't think because it starts off the girls get institutionalized. And so I'm like, well, this makes sense. That's the first stop. You would go, what, are they having a mental health breakdown or what's going on here? But I don't think they fully explored that side of things because they put them in the institute and then after about a day, rip them out, tie them to a chair and start throwing holy water and stuff and like
get me the Dalai Lama and a bucket of holy water.
It's so fucking crazy. It's just, it's a terrible film and it's such a shame because it's like, A, the original film is a classic, but B, like there was a good film in there, but then they turned it into religion Avengers. Let's somehow, and it doesn't actually even, and spoilers, it doesn't even really resolve in a satisfying way where it's like, so what happens is it's the Dark Knight. So what happens is the devil's like, all right, you fucking religious nuts. One girl will live and one will die. You get to choose. And so the parents will say, no one make a choice. The only way we get through this is no one decide to save one of the girls. And so all the parents agree to that. And then the action rolls on for a bit. And then the fundamentalist Christian dad says, like, Chloe, I choose Chloe. And so you're like, okay, well, Chloe's going to live. But then in Devil World, the devil's like, Chloe, your dad chose you. So he takes Chloe. And so one of the girls dies and the other one lives. And it's like, wait a minute. That doesn't logically make sense. The devil's a liar.
Yeah.
Right, okay.
Can't trust the devil.
I get it now.
I think the message is that you can't trust the devil.
Yeah, you can't trust the devil.
And also that if you give in to the devil's impulses, that you're you're punished by the devil. Like as in like that's the you
The
can't
devil
trust-
was tempting the father.
Yeah, exactly, and he gave in to temptation, and thus was
Something?
I don't know.
Yeah.
Thus was like
Something,
evil,
something, something.
and then the
But
devil.
I think this is how the script
Yeah.
meeting went, and then something, and
something
the
the
devil,
devil.
and you make a choice.
But all
and
the religions are there.
all the religions are there. Oh, the best part too is in the original film, Ellen Burstyn plays Christine McNeil, the mother of Reagan, the possessed girl, and it's an incredible acting performance, tour de force. Like you just believe the whole time you're watching the film that like she is a mother who is just heartbroken about what is happening to her daughter and doesn't understand and is having to watch her daughter go through this horrible ordeal. And so they bring her back as a legacy character in this film. So the dad, who's, I'll talk about the expositionist. His neighbor says, "Hey, I understand your daughter's going through some shit right now. Have you read this book by Christine McNeil?" And he's like, "What's this?" And it's like Christine McNeil, after her original Exorcist experience, has written an entire book. And so he seeks out Ellen.
What is the book called? Tell me it's not called The Exorcist.
It's called something like "Go Fuck the Devil." It's not called that. It's called. Can you look it up? Hey, Mike, I can't remember what it's called. It's like something like I Dance with the Devil by the Pale Moonlight. Anyway,
right.
So he seeks her out, and much like Jamie Lee Curtis in the Halloween remake, who this film was directed by the same director, she's living in isolation, escaping the devil.
Okay.
And we talk about Ving Rhames getting a payday. What a payday for Ellen Burstyn. Like she's literally the way they
By the
advertise
way,
it, she's everywhere.
Hang on. Why is she living in isolation?
Escaping the devil.
But the devil can't find you if
he doesn't have Google Maps. He's off grid. So she's living by the beach somewhere. Escape the
where
devil.
the devil can't find her.
Yeah, exactly. And her big pain is that after Reagan, after she saved Reagan, she wrote a book, and then Reagan got so angry about her writing this book that she has lost contact with her, and all she wants to do is speak to her daughter again. Anyway. So this dad seeks out Christine McNeil and is like, "Hey, I think my daughter's going through the same thing that your daughter went through." And she's like, "Well, I traveled the world and I studied every religion, and evil exists in the world and every religion, and good exists, and exorcism is in a lot of different religions. So there you go."
Oh.
And he's like, "Could you come back with me to Georgia or wherever they live and help me?" She's like 80 something. And she's like, "Yeah, cool." And so they go back to one of the possessed person's house. Like, she's an old lady, right?
Yeah.
She's not a young priest.
No.
She's not even a priest, really. Oh, there's a great line about the patriarchy. He's like, "Why did she's like, I didn't actually see the exorcism when they did it to Reagan. I wasn't allowed in the room. Damn patriarchy."
No, no, that does not happen. Damn patriarchy.
Damn patriarchy. I mean, you thought Barbie slammed the patriarchy? Wait for this one line from Christine McNeil. Anyway, they get to the house where one of the possessed girls is running around causing havoc, and so you've got 3 fully grown men in the house looking, "Oh, what's happened and where's the girl?" They send the old lady up the stairs, like the oldest, most infirmed of everyone, up the stairs to find the devil girl. And when she finds her, she promptly gets stabbed in the eyes with a crucifix. And this all happens in the space of about 10 minutes. Like, from them introducing Christine McNeil, beloved legacy character from the original film. They bring her in for some exposition.
They bring her in, rip her relationship with her daughter from her.
Yeah, the one thing that you love about the original film.
Yeah, that's done.
Done.
They had a falling out over the book.
That held that first film together, a mother's love.
You know the whole point of the first movie? Undone.
Yeah. And then they stab her in the eyes with a crucifix.
And then she dies without ever being able to reconcile that relationship.
And then they don't even have the dignity to kill her in some heroic ending. She just gets stabbed in the eyes by this possessed girl. And then she spends the rest of the film in a hospital bed, blindfolded, going, "Who's there? Who's that? Who's walked into my room?"
No.
Yeah. Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
Does Reagan walk back in?
She
at some
does.
sta- Oh, thank God.
That's a little post-credit sequence.
All right.
She comes in
Okay.
and hugs her mum.
And
So-
puts a pillow over her.
and I'm still possessed. It's been 40 years. The
I mean,
devil played the long game.
The possessed on the down low for 40 years. It's just the possession's like herpes. It's always in your system, even if you're not having a flare up.
The title of the
yes,
fake book. It's called A Mother's Explanation, The Journey from Possession to Now, with just a big photo of like an old headshot. Of her.
An old acting headshot.
Yeah.
Ellen Burstyn's acting headshot. So it's called what? Mother's Explanation.
A Mother's Explanation.
I mean, even the title of the bullshit book is exposition.
Yeah.
A Mother's Explanation.
Can I read an amazing quote to you guys in relation to this movie?
Okay.
Yes, please.
This is apparently William Friedkin, the director of the original Exorcist.
Yes.
said this,
Recently deceased.
Yes, just
Rubbing shoulders with the
before
devil
he
now,
died.
apparently.
To a critic, he said, "The guy who made these new Halloweens is about to make one to my movie, The Exorcist. That's right, my signature film is about to be extended by the man who made Pineapple Express." I don't want to be around when that happens, but if there's a spirit world and I come back, I plan to possess David Gordon Green and make his life a living hell.
Now, that's a movie I want to see.
I mean, I hope that's true. That sounds so good.
It sounds very William Friedkin, or at least Tony Martin's impression of William Friedkin. All right,
Okay.
one last
Yes.
movie review. The Holdovers, which is an Alexander Payne movie starring Paul Giamatti.
But not written by Alexander Payne.
Oh, was it not?
No.
Oh,
Because I love Alexander Payne
Me too.
movies. And I like him with Paul Giamatti as well. So I'm looking forward to seeing this movie. But I did do a little bit of reading about it, and it's based on someone else wrote it.
oh,
Yeah.
okay. My one-line review. We need more Paul Giamatti's and less Jared Leto's.
Is Jared Leto in?
No.
Oh,
And he
okay.
shouldn't be,
Yeah,
ever,
no.
in another film ever. Well, what I mean by this is
Yeah.
that, Jared Leto, who gets so was at one point so lauded for his transformations and
Yeah.
stuff, and the artifice is so evident when Jared Leto does something. Then you
Yeah.
watch Paul Giamatti in this film, and it's not Paul Giamatti as you know Paul Giamatti. It's like a character,
Yeah.
but it's so subtle and beautifully observed. And there's a little bit of kind of prosthetics and there's a little bit of this going on and that going on, but it's like you just fully forget that you're watching Paul Giamatti and he becomes this like high school professor or this boarding school professor. It's such a good movie.
Did you ever watch Billions?
No.
So Billions was one of those shows that, it's so enjoyable, but the only thing that makes it feel like a prestige show is Paul Giamatti.
Right.
And then if there was another actor who did not have the skill of him in this sort of, it's one of those shows where you feel like you're watching like a big, juicy, like shiny blockbuster most of the time.
Yeah.
And then just Paul Giamatti will be in it and you're like, oh, is this a really good show?
Yeah.
And you're like, I
is.
think he's the only thing that was constantly fooling me into going, I reckon this is a really good show. And then when he wasn't in scenes, you'd be like, is this a good show?
He's magnetic.
Yeah, he's
like
very
in
good.
in the best possible way. Like sometimes an actor is really good, but it's kind of they sort of pull you out of what they're in. Whereas he is just so good as this character. And I mean, the actual premise, is not anything new. Like it's three kind of misfits are brought together over this 2-week period, and they don't seem to get along. But by the end of the film, they're going to find some common ground and stuff. So that's nothing new. But it's just the character is so. I don't know if it's even unlikable, but just so abrasive and has nothing about him that seems to be kind of like endearing. But then just through this beautiful performance and the humanity that he ekes out, and he doesn't rush it, he's very patient in his performance. You're just like, this fucking dude is possibly the greatest actor.
He's very good at playing someone who on paper is unlikable and giving them some humanity.
Yeah, and it's interesting too, because it's not that the person is outwardly abrasive. It's like he's actually quite, charming and stuff, but he hides behind his intellect and he's a history teacher and all this kind of stuff. But it's just this, I watched it and it was like, you go from all those films that we've just mentioned to this. You're like, holy shit, there is a gulf. And they used to make lots of these kind of films. Like these used to be the blockbusters, you know. Rain Man was the highest grossing film of 1988. But now we're just like, fuck filmmaking, fuck acting. We just want spectacle.
Yes, I agree with you. So who should Paul Giamatti be in the Marvel Universe?
Well, I think he was. He was Rhino in one of the Spider-Mans.
He was, of course.
He
You're
was.
right.
But I think only in a cameo.
Yes.
It's such a good movie. Have you seen it, Mike?
I have. I loved The Holdovers.
Yeah, isn't
and
it good?
The newcomer, Dominic Sessa, was absolutely fantastic. And I don't know if you guys ever watched the High Fidelity show,
TV
the
show
short-lived
with Zoe
one, but
Kravitz.
Devine Joy Randolph was in that, and she's in Only Murders in the Building. I think she's just like fantastic.
The whole cast is amazing, but what's also fantastic about it's set in 1969.
Ha ha.
But it feels like 1969. Like they clearly shot it on 35, so it has that grainy quality, and you just sort of like you just disappear into the film. And there's so many things about it that I'm like, I don't give a fuck about these spoiled, kids in a boarding school in Boston.
Yep, sure.
It's so far from my experience and stuff. But by the end of it, you're like, I feel like I know these people, and I feel like I empathize with them, and it's just the whole thing and the ebbs and flows of the characters and what they reveal about themselves. It's just like, I think I've been lured into dumb filmmaking for so long that I've actually forgotten what I enjoy.
Oh no, I think that's right. It's like eating fast food all the time, and then you actually just eat
a
some
vegetable,
nice home cooked like proper food, and you're like, this is like really nice.
Yeah,
and I think that definitely when it comes to movies, it feels like that is what has happened. Like I've felt like that, moving off like reading social media all the time and instead trying to read books and stuff. Is you're like, this is actually better. How did we get conned into
scrolling,
believing? Yes, and because that's what it has become now, right? All this choice. And I go back to that idea of, your first year, like, buying food for yourself out of like home, and you start making all those dumb choices because you suddenly have nobody telling you what to do. Is that sometimes like when we get what we think we want, it isn't actually what we want or need.
That's right. Like back in the days, back when we couldn't just skip around from movie to TV show. If we got bored in the first 10 minutes, you'd stick with shit. And then you would be surprised by...
Or you would like watch something that you didn't enjoy, and then that would be the story.
Yeah.
The story would be about, remember that movie we watched, the blah, 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 that like, it was just so ridiculously terrible and that thing happened at the end. Well, that doesn't happen anymore because if you're 15 minutes in and you don't like it, you're like, I don't like the vibe of this.
Speaking of not liking the vibe of this, Will, we're going to go to the mailbag.
Oh, okay. Does somebody not like the vibe of something we've done?
I don't know. Maybe.
I didn't know if that was like a...
it was a terrible segue.
Okay, it was. I was like, speaking of not liking the vibe of this, Will, you're on tour at the moment. Illegitimate is the name of your tour, comedy.com.au, touring all over Australia and the world. You can check that out. And of course, if you like our podcasts, they're all here in the Everyone Relax feed. So make sure that you follow us on this feed so that you can see all of the episodes that come out. Philosophy's here, TOFOP with Friends episodes, Two Guys, One Cup. Our AFL adjacent podcast is back in the feed, which is very exciting.
And footy season starting now.
Maybe now. So anyway, check that out if you would like to have a listen to any of those.
And if you want to be like this listener who's written into us, you can go to everyonerelax.co. There's a little form down there. You can send an email to any of the shows that you like. But if you want it to be read out, this is the only show where we read out mail. Listen to Two Guys, One Cup.
Yeah, so send it to this one or Two Guys, One Cup. If you've got philosophy questions, are you even seeing philosophy questions if they come through? Or would they just go to
the philosophy account? I don't think.
Okay.
I do, but I don't ever check it.
Right. So we've
probably had huge money offers like Muji
we've been sending
Line Bike.
Sending people to that address. They've been asking questions into a void for
I didn't realize it was my job to monitor the philosophy mailbag.
I mean, it's
I think that was
not.
Podcast Mike's job, wasn't it?
Yeah, I mean, it's probably...
Hey, Mike, do you have access to the philosophy mailbag?
I do not.
Okay, we'll make that happen.
We'll have to work out how to, like...
We'll have to put our mics in contact with each other.
Yeah.
Okay. This is from Maddie. She says, there has been a butter candle hack going around the last couple of weeks. I'd love to see you guys react to the idea since it seems exactly like a TOFOP podcast idea.
A butter candle hack.
That's right. That would come from one of your late afternoon recordings. What does that mean?
More
Late afternoon recording?
just more stoned or
Oh,
more
right.
dumb, like the more
Desperate for material.
more like just more
Tired. Running out of things to say.
ridiculous, in some weird ridiculous hole.
Okay, so we've Googled a YouTube video, Will, so you want to turn to that monitor behind you.
Okay,
Can you
Cool.
see that? All right.
all right.
Just move your mic around.
Interesting.
Okay.
Yep.
Are we going to get audio on this too? Okay, great. All right, so this is
Okay.
a butter candle. So it only takes about 60 seconds.
So is this candle made of butter?
Yeah, we can't hear any.
Okay,
Can't
all
hear
right.
the audio on that.
Should I be hearing the audio?
We should.
Okay.
Maybe we'll restart that.
Sorry, one sec. I'll set that
That's
up
okay.
again.
No worries.
Well, you can just get a sense of the visual.
I mean,
into the same cup.
Ah, there
There
we
we
go.
go.
Here we
Okay.
go.
Okay.
All
One
right.
sec. Let
Alright,
me
just-
just refresh that.
Go from the start then. All right.
Have you heard of a butter candle? It's such a fun party appetizer. First, cut out a hole in the middle of the bread to make room for the candle. I use a candle wick and Danish Creamery rosemary salt butter because it's made with rich, European quality butter and already seasoned perfectly with specialty herbs. Just melt it, pour it into the same cup with the wick inside, and freeze for 1 hour. Then cut the cup, slide the candle into the bread, and light it up. You can start dipping in about 10 minutes.
This is fun and so good.
Did she get censored?
Have
there?
you heard
Did
of a butter candle? It's such a fun
That was
party
me, sorry.
This is
Thought we were
so
almost at the
fucking
end there.
good. Now, when this got sent, I was like, "Ugh, butter candle.
Yeah.
I watched that. I'm
Yeah.
like, I fucking want to eat a butter
No,
candle.
it's-
What?
You're ruining good butter with all the messing around. This is one of those things that is just all the fuss.
Melted butter in fresh bread. Don't you think that'd be amazing?
Yeah, but you can do that without any of the fuss. That
No.
literally.
This is
without
meant to be for
any of
it's
the
for,
fuss
it's for a dinner
that
party.
has just happened.
It's a for dinner. It's not for you to eat on your own like you do. It's like that's
Put
like
some hot, some butter in a tray in the middle of the fucking and with some oil and some other things, and fucking heat up your bread in the oven. You don't need to put some dumb candle in the middle of your because the bread's not going to be hot or fresh anyway because that would melt the candle from the outside.
it will be warm. No, it'll be definitely the warm butter will keep the bread warm.
No, it won't because it's cooking from the inside of the candle, and you're having to dip the
No, I think the idea is so for people who are only listening. So
Yeah.
she had a round loaf of bread. She carved a hole
Yeah.
in the middle of it and stuck the butter candle in the middle.
Yeah.
But she cut wedges off. So you'll break
Yeah.
in a wedge off from the inside.
Yeah.
And so it'll be warm. It'd be warm, melted.
No, it won't be.
Well, if you eat it quick,
So much fuss for so little return. What do you get out of this that you don't get out of just warming up some bread and putting some butter on the table? Just tell
I
me
guess-
one thing. What?
you don't get that instant melted like it's garlic bread quality. Like, you know, when you get like garlic bread. In fact, I'll just get some garlic bread.
Oh, I can understand. There's an appeal to me of this is kind of a take on that idea of, when they will serve you some melted parmesan, like a cheese, like at a, one of those places where they heat up a block of cheese and they'll
yeah.
put the pasta on the top and they'll
That always grosses me out a bit, that.
Well, that's what this is.
It's not really.
It is.
It's nothing like that.
It is exactly like
Okay,
that.
sure.
It's just one of those things that you're like,
Gorgonzola, I believe.
here's
isn't
the
it?
experience. No. You've weighed in with a gorgonzola is a type of cheese, and yes, you could probably
wheel
do it with
cheese? Are they big gorgonzola? No?
I don't think.
Okay.
I don't think so.
All right.
I mean, now you've maybe I'm wrong, but
Yeah.
I think gorgonzola is a.
It's a funny word, isn't it? Gorgonzola.
The more
This is a very late afternoon TOFOP conversation. All right.
Gee, gorgonzola is a funny word. That's the end of the podcast.
That is the end of the podcast. We'll both be back next week. I'm Charlie Clausen.
I'm Will Anderson.
want relax.